When it came time to do the DVD, George's first idea was to have the waterfall sequence put into the movie. Dean Yurka was the artist chosen to supervise the sequence, combining all the elements into a seamless whole.
This is a waterfall sequence, which was cut out of the original movie. On this sequence, I had to go by the animatic, so here's the rough animatic of the general sort of shot that we wanted. And I had to use some elements, these were salt elements that were shot from the original SW1 for the Theed sequence. And so I combined these elements together on a grid to make a general sort of texture for the waterfall. And I took these elements and then as one image, rotated it into position. And because it's 3D space, I was able to bend the image around and make it into the sort of lip of the waterfall. And to give it some depth and some texture, I used a displacement map, which gave the sort of edge and the shape to the waterfall. And I took several other of these elements and then combined them together to create the whole general sort of shape of the waterfall. And then took a matte painting, put that in there, and then also added some particles to try and create this sort of feel of water and texture. One of the other tricky things about this shot was to actually use the submarine in there. So we took the model of the submarine that was used in the original sequence, and also I textured it using some of the images from the rest of the movie, of the live-action submarine. So I took that into the 3D system and then combined it together with the waterfall patches. And then because it's actually 3D, you can move into the shot and do a little move around there and just give it a bit more life and a bit more realism, like a real camera would work. And at the moment, it's still quite a basic shot. So what I wanted to do is help hide the submarine and help fit it into the shot to create some sort of water around the edge of it, some sort of interaction, so you kind of buy that it's really there. And so I rendered some more particles and took little parts of water and little bits of water and then just plonked those into the shot. And also generated some smoke elements, just using the particle system in here. This is to kind of cloud the whole image and sort of give it the kind of more depth and watery sort of feel to the whole shot. And I combined this with the particles and then pasted them all these elements together to create the shot. And also put some little birds in there. Some little extra touches that I did would just create a little rainbow effect, just to tie in that water feel, and also put some grain on there to make it feel more like the film. On the second shot, here again we've got the animatic, and this is a little trickier because you see the submarine more from the front on, so it meant that, and also the other problem was that you see the city in there, and I only had still elements to use in this shot. So what I had to do was take those still elements, just single frames, and then cut them into separate pieces, so that then I could position these in 3D space and then move around with the camera to create a little bit of multiplaning sort of effect. It makes it just sort of sit in there a little bit more and gives it a little bit more reality to the shot, rather than having everything just locked off and still. And then again, I took other elements from the shot, so these are just 2D images that were put onto a little flat grid and then positioned into the shot. And it creates more texture, more depth in there. And then here's the same element that I used before to create the lip of the waterfall. And this was all combined together in 3D space. So here we can put a little move on the shot and just sort of help everything gel together and take your eye off things. And then I took the same geometry of the submarine, put that in there, and you're getting this sort of little interaction around the edges, trying to help it look wet. Next we put the actors in, and the actors were shot against a blue screen, and we had to key them out and do a little cutout of them and position them into the submarine itself. So here we have all of those elements combined together, and I'm doing a little push in on the shot. And here I've used some more particle systems, a little bit more of the salt texture, just to hide the edges and help just gel everything together. To help tie in the submarine's tail, which is churning in the water, it generated some more of these little particles and just blurred those. And to make the submarine look a little bit more wet and a little bit more realistic, I rendered just a whole pass of the submarine as chrome and then just mixed that in to create a little sheen on the submarine. One of the other things I wanted to do was to create a reflection of the city in the water. So what I did was I took the existing shot and then flipped it over and just ran it through a little ripple program to create the final composite. And here we've got all of the elements combined, and these are all pasted together in one final composite to create the finished shot. And the next shot, I had to create the waterfall looking down, so you're almost going to fall over the edge of the waterfall. And again, I used the same basic principles of taking grids with a texture map on those grids and displacing that image, and then bending it around to create this general feel of the water. One of the elements that I used was actually shot on a little DV camera, and we went over to Mill Valley, where I live, and just shot a little waterfall that's there. In fact, it was just an excuse to get out of the office for a day. But we used that element and then combined that into the shot, and the idea was to get as much real water reference in there, just add a little bit more depth and a little bit more realism, so anything real that you can find. And then we took the submarine and then threw it down the waterfall. The submarine was supposed to hit the base of the waterfall and explode into pieces. I had to take the object and actually cut it into pieces so that each of those little pieces could be animated to break up and tumble when it hits. So here we have all the pieces together and falling down the waterfall and then exploding as they impact. Along with those little pieces, I also had to create little small tiny little bits just to explode and throw into the water. And here we've got some more particles and some fluffy ones just to create more and more of this texture, which kind of helps sell it as being water. One little extra thing is to add a little camera shake on there to make the shot feel more violent, like you're actually in there surrounded by water. It makes it feel like it's real camera. There's actually somebody there shooting the shot. So there's all of those elements combined, and that's the final shot. It's exhausting.